Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 of integration with Data Protection Manager 2012 with Operations Manager 2012. In part 1 we did a brief overview of DPM 2012 and some of the new features and functionality that's been added. And then we looked at a comparison between the new remote administration, which is just an option that allows you to bring up a single DPM interface for each DPM server you want to manage without you having to execute an RDP session. And then we compared that to the central console, and we also looked at the option to install the central console and talked about some of that and some of the limitations and things thereof. Today we're going to get into the discovery process. So after the discovery or the central console is installed and agents have been pushed out, there's a discovery process that Ops Manager does, and it's kind of important to understand how that works to know what to expect from the DPM side. And then we're also going to look deeper at the UI from within Ops Manager. We're going to see what it looks like, we're going to see how it would consolidate errors for you within Ops Manager, and then we'll also take a quick look at the role-based access control to see what that looks like. So the discovery process for Ops Manager is how SCOM will go out and discover what's happening. So just putting an agent on a box doesn't automatically give it the full view of what's going on that protected server, not protected server, but the server that with the Ops Manager agent. So the discoveries is what Ops Manager uses to figure out what's going on. So it will put an agent on, and then it'll start running little discovery processes. And these discovery processes by default in Ops Manager are run every 12 hours. And that time can be changed, but that would be something that would need to be discussed with your Ops Manager management team, because they would have those settings and know what's best for your environment, because a lot of times you don't want a constant spam of these discovery packets going out, and then you don't want them running on your server. So about 12 hours is kind of the sweet spot, but obviously that will vary based on individual environments. Now, the thing that's really important about this, and why I mentioned that it's done every 12 hours, is because the discovery process is actually hierarchical. So the first time it goes out, it puts an agent and it does a discovery. It will discover whether or not that is a DPM server. Now that's of course dependent on you having the DPM management pack installed. So it will discover, I see that you are a DPM server, and then it'll come back 12 hours later. On this first discovery of DPM server, it's not going to discover anything else. So within your Ops Manager UI, you will only see that you have DPM servers listed. You won't see any tapes, any disks, any protection groups, anything else. You'll just see the DPM server. So once it's discovered that there's a DPM server, it goes back through and then does its second level of discovery, which is where it picks up that second level there, the library, the production server, the protection group, the replica volume, and the disk. So in theory, after the second round of discovery, you would see that you have DPM servers, and then you would see the storage pools, you would see replica volumes, protection groups, and so forth. But you wouldn't see the actual data sources. So you might see you have an Exchange protection group, but you wouldn't see the actual mailbox databases. And maybe you would see your tape library, but you wouldn't see the tape drives that are inside it. So that would just happen on the next discovery round. So potentially it could take up to 36 hours for all of these discoveries to happen and for your DPM environment to fully populate within your Ops Manager UI. In my testing in my smaller environments, it usually populates considerably faster than that. But this is just kind of an understanding. So if you only see part of it, discovered, then you just give it time and allow the rest of the discovery process to work. So discovery troubleshooting, there's not a whole lot to it. It's mostly done through the Ops Manager UI, but if you've pushed the agent out, you've installed the DPM admin pack, and you're still not seeing any DPM servers listed after a couple of days, then you can go in and start looking at things. The biggest place to look for this is in Ops Manager. You go to the Management, or Administration, I'm sorry. Actually, let's change that one more time. We're going to go into the Monitoring tab within the Ops Manager UI, and we're going to look in our Discovered Inventory, which is up at the top. Here we'll see first and foremost that I do have a healthy agent listed on our DPM servers. In this case, I have 2 DPM servers, and those are the only agents I have in my Ops Manager inventory. And you would just search down and verify that you do have agents and they're listed as healthy on your DPM servers. If they're not listed as healthy, then you need to look from an Ops Manager troubleshooting point of view and be able to dig in that way. Assuming we do see these, what we would need to do is change the target type, and basically we're just going to verify that these DPM servers have been picked up as the correct servers. So if we change the view to all agents, or view all targets, and then we search for DPM, you'll see that these are the different target types. What we're most interested in is first the DPM seed, and second the DPM server. So we would just select each one of those one at a time and verify that we're listed. One quick note on the DPM seed, that's basically the seed we plant before we start doing our discoveries. That's not a monitored item, so don't be alarmed if you see that you have the seed and it's not monitored. That's expected behavior. After that, you would then go in and look for if it's a DPM server, if that discovery is done, and basically that's where most of the problems occur, because once we understand that it's a DPM server, then we just have to wait for the rest of the discoveries to take place. Alright, so now we can talk about the new UI within Ops Manager. Again, if you're a DPM person, you may not be used to the UI within Ops Manager, and it takes a little bit of getting used to, so we'll kind of take a look at that. First off, the general managing. This is where we look at, on the Monitoring tab, we can see we have System Center 2012 Data Protection Manager, or you might see System Center 2012 SP1 Data Protection Manager. Under here, you've got your alert views. Within the alert views, you can see all alerts. You can look at the backup alerts or the infrastructure alerts. When you look at the backup alerts, again, you can look at all, or you can drill down and look at disk backup versus tape backup. Within each one of those, you can filter down to all, or you can look at the alerts affecting multiple data sources, the alerts affecting a single data source. This would be something where if you have the easy example here would be loss or communication loss to an agent. You'd have multiple data sources that were going to disk, and those would all fail. Or you can get them one singly at the alerts affecting a single data source. You could also look down at the state views, which allows you to look at your disks. So those are the disks in the storage pool. You can see how much space is available and that type of thing there. You look at your DPM servers. You can look at your DPM servers that needs upgrade, and what that is that we can monitor DPM 2010 servers using this, but those servers need to be on UR6 or greater. So if you push in Ops Manager agent out to a DPM 2010 server that's not at least on UR6, that server will show up as a DPM server that needs an upgrade. So you just need to upgrade that server and then allow the discovery process to go through again, and the server will be changed over to and listed as a just regular DPM server. We can pick up all of your protected servers, all of the protection groups, and this just kind of allows you the different types of granularity. If you want to look at a specific protected server, you can look at it here. If you want to look at a protection group on that server, you would look at it from the protection group level. If you want to break it down even further and say, well, I need a specific data source, as you can see, you scroll down even further and we've got our data sources listed. We have all unhealthy, so any that are in an unhealthy state, inconsistent or what have you. Or you can go specifically say, I want to see all my client workloads, Exchange, file system, Hyper-V, and so forth. The one thing worth noting is the VMM does not show up here. So if you're protecting a VMM environment, and that's not to say you're protecting the Hyper-V servers, because that shows up under Hyper-V. But if you're actually protecting the VMM configuration, the VMM database, and so forth, that would show up under all data sources because it doesn't have its own workload-based category. Now, alert consolidation is something that's obviously new, and it makes life very simple. What it does is takes a whole slew of alerts and combines it to allow you to see there's one thing happening and I need to get to the root of that, as opposed to 12 alerts, although they all have the same root error at the bottom. As a simple example of this, in my environment I had a report, a SQL server, where a couple of the databases for some reason had failed to back up. If in this situation I had 50 databases though, I would have on my DPM server 50 critical errors listed. So that would be a whole lot of errors to try and filter through to determine what's what. However, by the time these errors get over to our Ops Manager server, we can see in the alerts affecting multiple data sources, it just shows up as one. So granted, we have multiple data sources or multiple DBs that have failed, but when it comes in here, it's just going to show me one. So I know that I can troubleshoot from a single point and not try and focus my effort and spread my effort around to multiple different things. I'm going to be able to look at just one single error and say, okay, this is what I need to work on and get resolved. So we'll take a look now at what all of this looks like in Ops Manager and how we would look at it and use it to manage a DPM environment. Again, this is our Ops Manager UI, and most of the work that we're going to be doing will be done through the System Center 2012 Data Protection Manager area. So we can take a quick look just to give you a feel for what we've got. I have one DPM server that's got a handful of protections, some Hyper-V, some SQL, and a client and an Exchange server. And then I've got one that is strictly doing SharePoint protection. So it's relatively simple setup. So when we come in here, we can go in and look at all of our alerts. This will again tell us our health. If we have any failures or alerts of any variety, they're going to pop up in here. And it's moving a little bit slow because we do have, I don't have enough RAM in here, so make sure your Ops Manager box has the correctly amount of allotted RAM based on the recommendations I gave in part 1. So for our alerts, We have one warning on a recovery that I was doing for something else and it failed. And then we have a replica inconsistent. So when we go back to our DPM, we'll see that that matches up with, yep, these are all of our protection groups and only one of them has an inconsistent state. Now if we had 20 DPM servers, it's a lot easier to just look here and see any critical errors versus going from one to the other. And we look down here at our infrastructure or our state views. Again, we can see all of our data sources in one location here. And we see, again, one of them is in critical. We already know which one that is. If we want to filter just to anything that's in a critical or unhealthy state, we can go to all unhealthy and we'll see it'll pull out just our one. We can also look if you have Exchange that you need to verify every day on across multiple DPM servers. You can just come in here to Exchange server and it'll list all of your Exchange protection groups or data sources and tell you what their states are. So this is a quick and easy way. You can do that obviously still also with client, file system, Hyper-V, whatever the workload, anything but VMM. You can come in here and get a one shot, show me all of my protection for that type of data source. So the other thing that as you go through this, you'll see that we have tasks. And if, for instance, this Exchange group was running out of disk space, you could come in here and do a modified disk allocation from the DPM data source task. And what that will do is it's going to connect to the DPM server, find out the disk information, and it's going to give you a quick UI right here and allow you to just put in the numbers. This is the current replica and recovery point volume sizes, and you can change them too, and then it gives you an option to do that. So as you can see, it's now connecting to the DPM server to determine the disk, and there it shows what our current usage is and the current replica volume size, same for the recovery point volume, current size and usage. So if we wanted to actually modify that, we could then come in here, make the modifications, increase the size, and go from there. So you don't have to RDP to that server. You don't have to pull up the DPM UI to that server. You just launch the one-click modified disk allocation. It connects and does the rest for you. So one of the other really nice things as you look at all of these tasks that are specific to whatever you've selected is you can come in and do a troubleshoot. So what a troubleshoot does is it's going to open up the DPM UI against whatever it is you have selected. So in our case, we're going to look at troubleshooting a data source. And it opens up a DPM UI that we're used to seeing. But here we are on the Ops Manager server. It opened up the UI for us. And you'll see across the top we have this yellow bar. So we're looking at this data source and we're looking at this DPM server. And all this is going to show us when we're doing in this troubleshooting scoped UI is information about this data source on this DPM server. So if we go to protection, you'll see that we only have, we're selecting all protection groups. We only have the one data source listed. Converse to this, if you go to the actual DPM server, all protection groups, you'll see that we have quite a bit going on. So in that scoped UI, even if you try to look at everything else and you select show me all, it's only going to show you the protection for that data source on this server. Same with management. It's only going to show you the agent that you have. Oh, that's a local data source, so it's not even going to show you agents because the data source doesn't have any agents with it on that DPM server. So again, it's just going to scope only things that are related to the item that you've selected. Another way to look at that is if you look at it from the alerts and you want to troubleshoot a specific alert. You'll get the same thing if you select on your alerts task, you can troubleshoot. And then that gives you, again, your ability to get the scoped DPM UI that is specific to this alert. Across the top in the yellow bar, it's going to have the alert ID that you're troubleshooting. So it'll show the ID 30164, and it's going to show the DPM server CButch 11. So it's going to show just that information, again, specific to the alert that we have selected. Same with all of the monitoring. All of the information in the monitoring tab will only be specific to what we're looking at here. So it really takes out all of the work that you have to do in scoping it down, creating filters, doing that type of stuff. It does it for you so that you can go in and just get what you need, get the information you need, see the failure, and then troubleshoot and get to the root of the problem yourself much quicker. Alright, and the final thing we're going to talk about is role-based access control. And we're only going to touch on this real briefly. It's a feature that is included with Operations Manager, and we are just leveraging it. What we have done within DPM is to create some predefined roles that we allow an administrator to set up and use. So by doing this, you can go in and assign a user who is an Ops Manager user, assign them one of these roles. So as an example, you can have a read-only operator, and what that is just like it sounds. They can only read DPM work. So you can say to this user, I don't want you to do any backups, I don't want you to force any consistency checks, I don't want you to do any restores. All I want you to do is go in there and monitor, look for errors. If you see an error, get the information on it, tell me what's going on, but I don't want them to have any ability to launch a backup, to launch a restore, or do anything else. That would be a read-only operator. You can see the definitions over to the right for each one. To set this up, it's very easy from the installation directory where DPM and the DPM installed to on your Ops Manager server, which would be Program Files, Microsoft DPM bin. There is a file called default role configurator.exe. Just run that from a command prompt. It will create these roles for you. Once the roles are created within Ops Manager, you double click that role. There's an option there to click plus to add a user. You add the user to that role, and that's all there is to it. The definition of these roles is right here. It's mostly self-explanatory, but your DPM admin or your tier 2 support can do just about everything. Your tape admin's only going to be able to do tape infrastructure stuff. Is what your tape operator is going to be able to do the same type thing, but a little bit more limited. And you can kind of see where those permissions lie. You can, within Ops Manager, if you are familiar with Operations Manager, modify the permissions as they exist. And if you want to kind of meld some of these together, you think that one is too restrictive, but another one is gives too much permission, what you can do is take that role that you want to modify, make a copy of it, and then give it your own name, and then take away permissions that you don't want, add permissions that you do, and then test that to make sure that it has the permissions that you feel like it should. Okay, well that's it for Operations Manager and Data Protection Manager integration. I hope that you found this informative and are able to enjoy the new functionality that we have released with the new versions of System Center to allow these two to play well together and simplify your life as a data protection manager administrator. Thank you very much.